Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3, our final day of Sustainability Week. Thank you for joining us on what is a typically rainy Brussels Thursday. My name is Corey Bennett. I am Politico's climate and energy editor. And today, the focus that we are going to have is competitiveness and industry policy. Okay, what is that? Well, obviously our panelists are about to tell all of us, but you all know they are some of the new favored buzzwords within the Brussels bubble. So that's what we're going to get into today. I think we've had about 100 mentions of the Draghi report this week. So that's what we're going to be talking about, the link between industrial policy, climate policy, the US, China, Europe, competitiveness in that geopolitical realm. Everything will be covered today. But before we get into that, I would like to thank a couple of our partners for making the summit possible. We have our leading partners, Amazon, BMW Group, Coca-Cola Europe, Corteva Agriscience, GE Aerospace, Mueve, and the Polish Electricity Association. We have our presenting partners, ADM, EDF, Geopost, GE Vernova, IRU, McCain, and Yara. We have our networking partner, A2A. We have our visibility partner, the Zoe Institute for Future Fit Economies. A few housekeeping rules before we get underway. As you know, we love a good debate. Let's keep that conversation going with you guys online on your favorite social network, X, Blue Sky, whatever you prefer. Our hashtag for today is hashtag Politico Sustainable Future Week. I should at least get the hashtag right. Politico Sustainable Future Week. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. Some sessions will include a Q&A for our audience in the room here. Those sessions are indicated both on the program, and our moderators will also let you know when there will be a Q&A session. You can ask a question by simply raising your hand. We'll have a mic going around the room that you can have. As a general rule, we do ask you to keep your questions snappy, avoid statements, and please indicate who you are and which organization you're representing today. And now we will hear some opening remarks from Joachim Post, the member of the Board of Management responsible for purchasing and supplier network at BMW. Afterwards, our climate reporter, Federica Desario, will be on stage to moderate a panel, and that will be titled, Competitive and Green, Can the Clean Industrial Deal Ensure Europe Has It All? Okay, thank you. Talk soon. Thank you.
So, thank you, Mr. Bennett, for the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, the automotive industry has a huge part to play in reaching the European Union's goal of climate neutrality by 2050. What does the BMW Group strategy for this look like, and what political framework does the automotive industry need to keep competitive leadership in Europe and the world? The BMW Group has a clear decarbonization strategy. We are fully committed to electromobility, and we are leading the way on this drivetrain technology. For us, this is a growth business. At the same time, we deliberately take a technology-open approach, recognizing that mobility needs vary between different regions on the world. We want to offer our customers the best drive concept for every need, always taking advantage of the latest technology. Whether it's battery electric, it's a plug-in hybrid, a highly efficient combustion engine, or, in the future, a hydrogen fuel cell. And you can see outside in the exhibition our hydrogen fuel cell X5. Producing electric cars requires a lot of resources and also involves carbon-intensive processes in the supply chain. This is why we are working closely with our suppliers to reduce CO2 emissions throughout the entire supply chain. Critical raw materials are another important focus for us. Lithium, cobalt, and gallium as key components for batteries in battery electric vehicles are essential to decarbonization. What do we need from politics to be successful and competitive on the road to decarbonization? To put it in a nutshell, we need a realistic timeline, and we need the right strategy. And we must have a common goal for an industrial Green Deal. First, coming to the timeline. If new vehicles are no longer allowed to emit CO2 from 2035, this is effectively a ban on the combustion engine. However, it will not be really possible to build up the availability and processing of raw materials and battery cell technology in Europe required to pure electromobility within 10 years. This development requires a lot of money and time, as well as the relevant skills. The dependence on countries outside the EU will continue to exist for many more years. Therefore, it's important that CO2 reduction targets are fundamentally realistic, becomes more ambitious over time, and do not set the maximum target for the outset without a strategy. Take hydrogen as an example. To kickstart hydrogen storage, it would make sense to initially allow all forms of production. Then, once storage is on the right track, the next step could be to make green hydrogen the goal. Second, the right strategy. Instead of a patchwork of regulations, we need a holistic political approach that supports the entire process, from the extraction of raw materials through battery cell technology to the finished end product. Let's start at the beginning of the value chain, raw materials for electromobility. I'm responsible for purchasing and the whole supplier network at the BMW Group. This gives me a very detailed view of the automotive industry's highly complex supply chain. How does the current regulation play into our day-to-day business? Availability and processing of raw materials are key to the success of electromobility. But most of the critical raw materials, mining and refining, as well as the battery cell production, occurs outside the European Union, with no alternative in the near future. We urgently need to establish the right framework conditions to overcome this structural deficit. We need more European value creation in the raw material supply chain, but at the same time, we face highly complex regulations as well as high energy prices. Let me give you a concrete example in this context with graphite. To reduce Chinese market power regarding graphite, it is important to establish a European graphite or graphite recycling industry, which, of course, has to go hand in hand with the implementation of high ESG standards. Setting up a recycling process you have to regard the whole impact, also the impact on the environment. That is why legislation cannot only prescribe quotas, but has to consider the overall context to resolve all targets. In addition to strengthening the raw material supply chain within Europe, we need specific policies around free trade and raw material agreements with countries, especially, for example, in Africa, where raw material reserves and refines are located or being developed. We have to be aware, without battery value creation in Africa or in some other countries, the mid and long-term growth of electromobility will not be possible. Let's look further up on the value chain towards the product at technologies for electromobility. In addition to securing raw materials, we need to make sure that all relevant technologies are available in Europe. This is especially true for battery cells, which still mainly come from China and a small volume from Korea. We should think about bridging Chinese battery cell production to Europe and bringing it to Europe based on a local-for-local cooperation approach. This also goes for other countries. We need partnerships to ramp up sufficient capability at scale. Local-for-local requirements are better than tariffs. But beyond this battery technology, companies need the freedom to use the best technological solutions to meet legal requirements and reduce CO2 emissions, even beyond electrification. Leveraging the full potential for reducing CO2 should also include the utilization of carbon-neutral fuels to immediately improve the carbon footprint of more than 250 million vehicles already on the roads in the EU. At the same time, this would help to reduce our dependency on the battery value chain. The European Union should concentrate on setting a realistic timeline and a clear policy framework. With this framework, the industry can use its core competence of flexibility and adaptability to reach the set targets for decarbonization. All this would strengthen the automotive industry for Europe, which in turn will ensure competitiveness and economic security for Europe's long-term success. Thank you very much.